Hey now, today I am making a fresh batch of ginger syrup using, well, all of this ginger root that I've got right here. Big shout out to our friends Dave and Miranda who taught us this process a few years ago. We love it. This is a great recipe that's got that spicy ginger kick to it. It's got some nice caramelized sugar action, and it's useful in a lot of different recipes, adding it to teas, all kinds of fun stuff like that. And best of all, it's really easy to make, so come along for the ride. So step one in this process is to peel the garlic. We have found that the easiest way to do that is just using a spoon. You can just use the edge of it and dig in. This is way, way easier than trying to use a vegetable peeler or a knife, like a paring knife or something like that. It just comes right off. Then you can just use a knife just to take off the very ends there. Now for this process here, you don't have to really get 100% of this peel off because you are going to be straining everything out here a little bit later on, but you do want to get the majority of it off. It just makes this ginger a little more accessible for getting into the syrup. Now once you have all of your ginger actually relatively peeled here, I like to take it and just sort of chop it up into some manageable sized pieces. I am going to be using my immersion blender on this just before it really starts to steep, but getting into these smaller chunks here will make it a lot easier on that immersion blender. Now for the recipe, the quantities that I'm going to be talking about here and having in the video description are all based on 24 ounces of ginger before you go ahead and peel it and start to process it like I'm doing right now. I've got all of this ginger chopped up here and we're ready to proceed. So just in this heavy pot here, I'm going to be adding 2 3/4 cups of filtered water. I like to use filtered water just because chlorine and chloramine in your municipal water system might produce some off flavors in the finished product, so filtered water is probably best. To that, I'm going to add 2 cups of brown sugar. You could use any sort of darker brown sugar. I really like this raw brown sugar or cane sugar. I find that it is fantastic. I love the flavor. And then we add all of the ginger. Now, before I actually go to heat up, I'm going to take my immersion blender and start to run it in here. I'm using my Bamex. We've actually had this for 20 years here and it's still going strong. So I love this unit. And we're just trying to break up the ginger here in order to have it all more accessible for steeping. So I've just turned this on to a medium-low heat. I want to make sure that all of that sugar is dissolved. I'm going to get this up to a simmer. All right, time for the next step. So at this point, our goal is to strain out the solids and get as much liquid as we can. So I'm just using I actually have a plastic strainer here just because it's a nice size to go over top of this 4-cup liquid measure here. I do have a metal sieve, and as you can see, I've got some of that ginger in there right now. I'm just spooning it into here, and that sieve is going to trap all of the solids. I'm using my rubber scraper just to press down and squeeze out as much liquid as possible. Now with this ginger strained here, I'm going to return this back to a simmer and reduce. So after about an hour of just a slow simmer, I have hit the consistency I want, so it is time to jar it up. So now just for ease of jarring up here, I'm just going to transfer this back into this liquid measure. And these canning funnels make this quite a bit easier to do. And now I'm just going to let these cool down. All right, so our syrup here is cooled down. You can see I did this on the thinner end of things. I've done this thicker before. I find if you go too thick, you have some issues, especially if you're trying to use this in a cocktail and it's got a lot of ice and it's super chilled down. It doesn't necessarily want to mix in as nicely. However, this viscosity here will be great in almost anything. Let's have a little sample. So much ginger spice in there. It's got a lot of kick. That's super amazing. But then it has that really nice dark sugar character going on there. It really kind of balances out nicely. Now, this is absolutely delightful in cocktails, especially Moscow Mules. You could use this in teas, all kinds of stuff. Now, this will last you a decent amount of time. I would just keep it in the refrigerator and it will be all good. So there you have it. Really easy to make, just takes a little bit of time, really expensive to make, which is nice, and really good, versatile, can be used in all kinds of different things. So there you have it. Make it, use it, and until next time, keep it at 11.